It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. Today with a special episode that's relevant for each and every one of us wherever we are. And this is some plants, plants wisdom and some very common plants that we can work with at this time, or we can call on their wisdom, their protection at this time. So the ascendant is Saturn rule, and this is Saturn hour. Saturn rules agriculture. It's retrograde in Pisces right now. And the midheaven is on 2 degrees Scorpio with the Scorpio sun conjuncting it. So Mars is 9 degrees Scorpio, applying to oppose Jupiter, and Mercury is kind of in between the two. At 6 degrees Scorpio. The moon is on the anaretic degree of Pisces, 29 degrees Pisces, sextile in Pluto, separating from a sextile with Uranus and separating from a conjunction with Neptune. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to our first plant. And the first plant is a tree, it's eucalyptus tree. So eucalyptus tree, it basically grows in places where there is a lot of water, and it dries swamps. So it takes so much water that it dries swamps. But you're gonna be surprised, because if you go around southern Israel and you go to the mountains of the desert in southern Israel, you'll find eucalyptus tree. At about 500 meters above ground level, you'll find eucalyptus tree. Now, eucalyptus tree was a tree that we planted wherever there were swamps to dry the swamps so that there wouldn't be mosquitoes and there wouldn't be disease. So basically what eucalyptus does is drying up and creating rejuvenation by basically using the water that was stagnant. So creating, getting out of stagnation in watery or humid places where the water are standing still. Okay, standing still water is not only wells, but standing still waters is basically Scorpio. It's fixed water. It can be the well, the underneath the groundwater, but it can also be a swamp, okay, where the water stands still and they can develop ailments. Scorpio also rules poison, which is an antidote to disease. So what eucalyptus tree does is basically drinking the water in the swamp and creating a living plant out of it. That's the eucalyptus tree. But you're going to be wondering, well, if this tree grows in swamps and dry, stagnant water, how come it's growing and even flourishing in the mountains of the desert? Now, of course, it is, in the cities it is watered. Okay, but this tells us that some years ago, that place that's 500 meters above what the ground level had probably been swampy, floating with what? This area that was a desert had probably been swampy, so much so that eucalyptus trees flourished there. Because before we had municipalities and watered our cities, even in the desert, trees would grow where it's comfortable for them to grow. And if eucalyptus tree grows in a swamp, then it tells us that somewhere along the years, okay, there would not be any reason to plant a eucalyptus tree other than in a swamp, but definitely not in a desert. Somewhere along the years, that place was swampy. And actually, as I spoke to a bus driver, an older person bus driver from the village, I found out that about 100 years ago, where there is desert now, they had so much plants and so many things growing that you couldn't see the back of the camel from what the Jews call the kainos, is basically the sugar canes. And my grandfather used to sell them. But that tells you that at that place that was arid, that is a desert now, had been green and flourishing. And what else? He told me that the entire region from southern Israel to Saudi Arabia is becoming green. Okay? All the while, the European region, which was green, is getting more and more arid. So these cycles of the weather, okay, balancing out where life happens, basically. Okay? Now, this bus driver that knew this from his father is probably not the only intelligent person that can tell where the lands will flourish. Okay? They can tell the cycle of time. That makes a lot more political sense also for our times. Okay, there's an understanding that this place, if you want to invest in land, and you say, oh, but these are sands. Well, these are not going to stay sands. These are going to get green. The soil is going to heal up. So you would want to invest in that land. Okay? Which, of course, we see a lot of international forces from east to west trying to basically conquer more land in the Middle East, whether it's the Trans-Indian train design or actual wars happening, and many forces. Okay, if you just go around, like, who are surrounding the region of Israel, Palestine right now, but not only. You would see China, you would see Yemen, you'd see Qatar, you'd see United States, you'd see Russia, okay? Even Egypt from the south is a part of the people who are negotiating. Okay? There's like so many interferences on the outside, and there is a lot of interest beyond oil. Here's also the fertility of the land. Now back to eucalyptus. With eucalyptus, it not only creates a change where there is a swamp, you plant eucalyptus, then you basically change the situation where there is stagnation and disease. This also makes for a plant that is great antifungal. Why? Because fungi, where do fungi grow? In humid places and where the water is standing still. So basically, anywhere where, why do you need to dry up well after the shower, whether you dry naturally or not? Because you don't want your fungi to grow there, or fungi to grow on the skin. Okay, other than fungi like sugar, like this, yes, but they also need a humid place, a warm, humid place where they can develop, and this is the conditions of stagnant water. And stagnant water, the fixed water, the standing water, is also Scorpio. Okay? So eucalyptus is great to create that refreshing, to dry up what's needed, and it's a great antifungal. And when I say antifungal, I don't mean that if you right now have like a fungi, let's say in your nail toes, or your toenails, or your skin, or something like that, it's going to solve the problem immediately. Of course not. When I say antifungal, I mean that to have the day-to-day interaction with this plant, to have this day-to-day interaction, whether it's on your skin, whether it's in a shower, whether it's tea that you're drinking, whether it's water that you're boiling and then covering your face with your head with a towel. Okay, so you get steam, then it takes it out of your skin, and then you dry it up well. Then that is creating a change that you practice day to day. Okay. Of course, if right now you have a fungi, then you need to change your entire nutrition, but also what's stagnant in your life. Any emotional connections that are stagnant in your life, that you need refreshing change in, eucalyptus is going to help you make that change grow, and thus you will see as your life is changing, your habits are changing, then you will slowly be able to at the beginning avoid the fungi from keep growing, and later also get rid of the fungi. So that's a part of what eucalyptus does. Now, what else does it do? Okay, it creates refreshing changes in our lives in times that are stagnant, and we already said that. But it also, there's the way that it grows. When you see a eucalyptus tree, about a meter, just or more than that, surrounding the tree in a radius of, yes, there's at least a couple of feet surrounding the tree, nothing grows, only eucalyptus. Okay? This is a tree that when you use it holistically, when you use it for the wisdom of the tree, whether in ritual or in consumption or in essential oil, okay, then what happens is basically you create a shield, a territory in energy and physically. This is my space. Okay, I'm chewing on a leaf right now. Very fresh, strong. This is my space. And that distinguishes your energy from the energies of others, as well as, on a very physical level, to take up space. Okay? It's not about being antisocial. It's about the fact that we all need a space for ourselves. Even if we're in the most loving relationship, we need a space for ourselves to be. And eucalyptus creates that space. And space is air element. Okay, so it's creating changes in water. It drinks a lot of water, so water can't be stagnant next to eucalyptus. Also remind you to drink water. Can also perhaps aid in certain type of filtering of the water, not of all the toxins that we have. But it's good to put in tea, to put in a cup of water, to chew on it. I'm just going to remind you to change up the water inside you so you don't get stagnant. Okay, we're 70% waters. And as for the space that is created, it's the air element. Okay, space allows us to think, to reflect, to ground ourselves, and to be more sociable. Eventually, to be more sociable. Okay, when people are crowded and they don't have space, you notice that they are becoming more and more lonely. After they're too crowded, more and more lonely. What happened in COVID? So many families had to stay at home. Now, when you think about not having to stay at home, maybe you need a place to lay your head, and that's it. Maybe a lawn so that you can play. But if you can walk outside and walk to the park, walk here, walk there, it's no problem. You need a place to lay your head and no problem. Okay? And so we think about the construction of your house. What do my children need? They need a place to lay their head. They're going to play outside all day. We're going to go to the park. They're going to go to school. Now what do they need? They need a place to lay their head. They need some healthy food. That's it. But when we were asked to stay home, we had to face the situation where if we didn't have enough living space, people would begin to fight each other. And now you can't compare this situation with the situation with a lot of families that will tell you, we grew up 20 sisters and brothers in one house, and we slept one person with the head here and the other with the head to the toes, and we were, of course you were happy, you were playing outside all day. Do you know kids that are playing outside today? No, they get kidnapped. Okay? So you got to think day and night. You're playing outside all day. You're sleeping head to toe. But all day where you've been running. Okay, so you're sleeping head to toe later. Okay? But when I'm talking about people have to stay home 24/7, now I understand it. If you had a house, there was a mansion with a lawn in a yard, you can go outside and you can walk for miles and miles and miles before you meet a neighbor. You didn't have to worry about no lockdown. The only thing you would be concerned of is company you could have either from your family, if you had family, or your pets, okay, your companions. But other than that, if you had that, you saw that that was more meaningful than you thought, because maybe you were thinking to sell a house or to sell a yard. It's like, why do I need such a big house? Why do I need such a big lawn? It takes so much to clean, okay? But came COVID, came lockdowns, and you understood why you need it. Now, if you didn't have that, then you would realize that you need it more so than you thought. Because if you have 2 rooms and 2 roommates, which was my situation, for 5 years I lived like that. Now, when I was walking out of home or we were sitting outside with the neighbors, I'm like, what I need a place to lay my head. Anyway, if I would live, I'm half Dutch. So I was living in Israel. I said, anyway, if I would live in Netherlands, I wouldn't have more than that. I would have less than that. I had 1 room. Okay, I said, I have my own shower. I have my own kitchen. I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, I'm wealthy. Okay, but then came COVID. And even though my roommate was going to their family, even still, the connection became challenging. And I had to flee from a person I knew for 10 years. Do I judge the person? I can judge the person. I can get stuck on the person. Okay? But that person was also going through their Saturn return. That person was also doing everything they can to heal themselves. That person was also working in a job where they had to endure violence, and he didn't know where would salary come with the crisis. Okay, so I can get stuck on that person, or I can take a look at the fact that had that person been living in a mansion and working in a job that treats them well, they would have a lot of leverage, a lot of space to tune their actions down. And then they could be held accountable, okay? But what eucalyptus gives you is that space to think. Because when you have the space, I was walking to the city. Before the war, I was walking to Tel Aviv. And I said hello to people in the street. I had met a very nice lady there. And she said, only peace, we need only peace, and so on and so forth. And I told her, listen, you know why I come and I have this peaceful energy to me? Because every night, I live in a village, every night, I lay with my back on the ground. No carpet, no sheets, no nothing, okay? Lay with my back on the ground, look at the stars, grow some plants, I get grounded. So when I travel to the city, I got leverage, I got a smiling face. I wouldn't have that if I wouldn't have these conditions. And eucalyptus can help you to manifest that space. And to understand the importance of that space in you becoming a more civilized person. Because when you go back to your mansion, to your lawn, okay, to your quiet, I got babies crying there. It doesn't bother me. Okay, they're being tended to. It doesn't bother me. Why? Because there is all that vast space of peacefulness that I can tolerate the baby crying. But if I was living in a crowded city where the neighbor is stirring up the tea and you hear it on the other side, I used to live in such a place. Then you have that baby crying and that baby crying and that family there and that family there. It is also crowded, so people can't stand even the noise of laughing babies. In Germany, it's like that. And Germany is a very beautiful country. Okay? But if you can't have this space for yourself physically and energetically, then you become less civil person when you interact with people. And so eucalyptus giving you space where this is my territory energetically and physically is both helping you manifest this space and creating the changes in your life where you have stagnation or stagnant relationship. You take up space. Either take some space for yourself, you stop being so clingy, or you set boundaries if people are too. It's not that their needs are wrong, their needs are right. It's just we can't always provide. And you understand that it's right to take up some space. Then when you do come to volunteer or to treat another or to caretake for another or to participate in any societal situation, first of all, you can take the eucalyptus with you. Okay? Secondly, you had your time to think, to meditate, to ground yourself, to nourish yourself, to support yourself, to drink some water, to refresh yourself, to rejuvenate yourself. Now you're coming another person to the situation. Now, wherever you are, even if you don't have the plant or the essential oil, call on the wisdom of eucalyptus. Call like you pray to God. Set intention. If you're atheist, set intentions. Write a note, write eucalyptus. Say, I want the wisdom of eucalyptus. I want the protection of eucalyptus. I want the space. I want the rejuvenation. I want to create positive changes in my life, to release stagnation. Put it under your pillow, even in your prison cell. Okay, if you can do it. You'll see what happens. Either somebody comes and they have eucalyptus tea, or somebody comes and they have eucalyptus oil, or you go outside, suddenly you notice that tree. What's that tree? It's like, oh my God, that's eucalyptus tree. I didn't know it exists. Now, another thing is, if you're in the street and you need to find a tree, and you have eucalyptus tree around, you need to take up your space and stand next to the eucalyptus tree. Okay? It'll give you some space. And ask of it. Give me the space. Give me the protection that I need right now. So the first one is eucalyptus. Second, we're going to talk about a flower. And this is hibiscus. Now, hibiscus, we know that this flower, in Arabic they call it karkadeh, when the dried form. This flower we know is good to reduce blood pressure and also ignite passion, so to speak. You can see by its shape, okay, it's a flower with the seeds up. It's kind of like the flower and the phallus together. So supports hormonal health, but also, other than passion and the color red, I listen to and good for the heart as well, vitamin C, blah blah blah. I heard from an African person who talks about the spiritual properties of hibiscus. And one thing hibiscus is good for, because of its color, its red color, is for people who make rituals and work with deities that in the past used to require for animal sacrifice or blood sacrifice or working with blood. Okay? And again, Scorpio rules blood and bloodline. Also sexuality, the genitals. And instead of sacrificing an animal or blood sacrifice or spilling blood, sozusagen, you use hibiscus in your ritual. You could call on that entity, and that entity is satisfied with hibiscus. Even better if you can grow hibiscus. So when you want to incorporate in a ritual to give hibiscus to grow and give hibiscus flowers instead of bloodshed, this is a great plan to work with now. It's absolutely needed at this time, and I addressed the very ritualistic form of the way that people were murdered during conflicts. Okay, it's probably true not only to Israel and Palestine. It's probably is true to Ukraine as well. There's something very ritualistic. Even in the guidance that was written for the people who were performing the massacre, okay, they were very ritualistic. I will save you the gore details, but it was a ritual of blood sacrifice, and so it can manifest to and put hibiscus flower, call on the spirit of hibiscus to replace blood sacrifice and to ask to replace blood sacrifice, because those deities that used to desire a sacrificed animal, or perhaps before that even a sacrificed person or a baby, then they are very satisfied with hibiscus flower. Okay, you don't have to have blood sacrifice, even with the deities that preceded Abrahamic religions. Okay, so this is good to know. Blood sacrifice is literally not needed ritualistically to achieve anything. So hibiscus is another great flower to work with where we want to manifest the replacing of blood sacrifice and blood rituals and horrid killings of animals and people with growing and harvesting hibiscus flowers. Okay. Now, last but not least is pine. Pine. And pine, we know the pine needles, but there's also this gummy thing that grows, this type of ember that grows on the bark. That thing is also edible and is very tasty. I tried it yesterday, so good. Okay. For pine, we have the needles. Okay, we have the ember thingy that you can absolutely eat just as it raw. You can eat it raw. And we have the pineal, those that look like the pineal gland, basically. Okay, and yeah, basically this sort of, I think that's the fruit of the pine. If you burn it, then you get the seed, which you can roast and eat. But also, if you want to plant pine, then you need to burn these, pine fruits or pine nuts or whatever you call them in your language. And then you can use the seed. So basically, when a pine tree gets burned, it multiplies. It's kind of like the phoenix from the flame. It grows stronger. It's like you plant a tiny forest, you burn a tiny forest of pines, you're gonna have, here with the rains after, you're gonna need the rains after, you're gonna have a bigger forest because they're gonna multiply. They multiply when they're burned. It's a very intelligent type of a tree. Okay? And that tree has the intelligence of the phoenix from the flame. And not only do they burn, do they multiply upon burning. When you try to kill it, it just multiplies. But not only that, when you burn pine, okay, you get the essential oil release. What is the essential oil good for? Well, it's cleansing for the breathing. I kid you not. Okay, this is the humor of pine. It works with the ridiculousness of humanity, basically, because pines usually they don't get burned on themselves. But it's giving us even cure for the stupidity of humanity. It's like, if you burn forests, I'll multiply and I'll even provide you the remedy for the stupidity that you make. So my essential oil is going to be good for your breathing. You're going to be stupid, I'm going to be smarter than you times 10. Pine tree also has a lot of vitamin C. Okay, also hibiscus. But pine tree the tea is great for the immune system. So you put some hibiscus with pine, it makes for a great tea. And if you chew on the amber, wow, very tasty. And packed with nutrients. Now the wisdom of pine allows you to get at the core silliness of war. It's like how stupid it is to be violent. It's like what you're trying to kill violence is not gonna, that's just gonna multiply. But you could use the pine to strengthen your immune system, the vitamin C, that helps you absorb, for example, iron, which is ruled by Scorpio. Yeah, it's very scorpionic. And it helps you to breathe clearer, to refresh your breath. So also to get a better focus, to understand the core issue of a problem and to resolve it from the core, as well as to work with nature and not against yourself. It's like, hey, if people are stupid and they're going to burn forests, then let's just multiply. So we're going to be multiplying upon burning. Okay? So if people are going to do something to extinguish us, we're going to find resourceful ways to basically grow bigger. Okay, this is a planet that's very good if you're experiencing animosity. Because you're just going to grow stronger. They have this scorpionic thing. It's Scorpios. If you give them a crisis, they come out stronger. You don't crisis a Scorpio from existence. They're just going to come out stronger. But if you're using pine, and there's also the connection between the pineal gland, is your ability to be intuitive and think with clarity. Okay, but you also get it from the entire tree. It's like, you people are stupid, you burn forests. Okay, this is stupid. You're going to die if you continue doing that. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply, create even a bigger forest. And while we're burning, our essential oil are basically good for your breathing. So you're going to be stupid enough to burn us, at least do it like to sage your house or so to pine your house or something like that. Okay, or to roast the seed, because there's enough seed for everybody. And so they're not judging you. They're just showing you that, look, this way of life is better than that way of life. Because obviously you were burning pines because you did something stupid. Maybe you're trying to burn your trash. Maybe you even were trying to do something good for the planet. Maybe you were smoking a cigarette. It's not good for you. Better breathe on a pine. If you put some pine to the smokes, then you get a good essential oil. It's good for your breathing. But if you smoke some cigarettes or some, I don't know what, it's not good for you. Better for your lungs to burn some pine. Okay? It's a smart being. It's like, you're doing something stupid, Mr. Human Being. Here, take some medicine. Okay? But then to multiply a pine forest, you're going to need to roast some seeds. You're going to need to roast the fruit, and basically the seeds come out, so you can plant some of them, you can eat some of them. They're very nutritious. So you get food, you get tea, you get good, it's good for your immune system. You get the amber that's condensed. It's very antibacterial. Now, of course, when this is a plant that grows through transformation, of course it's going to be antifungal too, because it's like, but it's antifungal on steroids, okay? It's antifungal on steroids. It's not the main reason you would use that, but you would definitely use that to freshen up the air, to create change, to keep the focus. Very good in deodorants as well. And to burn the essential oils, you can burn the leaves or the needles. Now, as for the barks, okay, and it's a general wisdom, the bark of a tree, you can simply use as protection. Now, eucalyptus, for example, we said is giving you space. You might want to carry a bit of the bark either in your pocket or next to your room or opening of the room, the apartment, or even the prison cell or the hospital bed, okay? So if you could get your hands on some bark, then this is going to facilitate in that protection. Okay, you could use the leaves for that. We could also use the bark. And of course the bark is kind of like more of that tree element that you can use for protection, for setting a boundary. This is, and it sets a boundary by centering, okay? It's not so much a return to sender. It can be, but by shielding and centering. Okay, it's the shielding and centering. Okay, if I'm holding my bark, my eucalyptus bark, then I see that I feel it's almost like you're holding a crystal that's meant to ground you. Very, very powerful, but tender. Okay, it's tender grounding, and the joy of tender things in general, because you don't always have to be exploded with power to achieve a result. Sometimes tender power can do so much more than bombs and missiles and A-bombs and explosion. Even though we tend to explode, if we have enough space, that's the tender work of eucalyptus tree or eucalyptus bark, then we can get a lot more achieved than by being, noise and whistles and bombs. And we all have the tendency to do that. So we could all use some of the wisdom of these plants, okay? All have to do with Scorpio. Not only, but all have to do with Scorpio. And so, like I said, you can call on the spirit. You can use the leaves in a tea. You can boil the leaves and cover your head with a towel, and then you get the steam. Okay, you can breathe the steam. You can breathe the essential oil, basically. That's what happens there. You can use it on your altar. You can put it in your pocket. You can make a sachet out of it. Of course, if you know how to make tinctures, you can make tinctures out of it. Okay. Tinctures, usually you would want to use the dry form of something. But other than that, of course, if you know how to make salves, you can make salves out of it. And if you have the essential oil, or if you have the distillery, you're fancy, then you can distill it. But even if you don't have the plant, okay, you can call on, you can write on a note, or you can set into, if you don't have a pen and paper, you could call on the plant to protect you, and ask to be where this plant is. Okay, so these are some local plants that I found, and they're very common. Okay, eucalyptus, very common. Pine, very common. Hibiscus, very common. Okay, and They're supposed to be easy to come by. If they're not easy to come by at your region, this is a red flag for you. Okay, maybe it's time to set intention that you want to be around this. And again, with what we're dealing right now, these are tender ways and points of interferences that we can tend to. And whether it's replacing blood sacrifice with hibiscus and putting it on an altar, where it's making us some tea for those who still have like boiling water, the ability to boil water. Whether it's, if you have the ability to make a salve, wow, this is lovely, you can put it on your skin. And this is the wisdom of the trees. It's not dependent on, right now the moon is void, for example, it's not dependent necessarily on anything astrological, as though you have the wisdom of Scorpio. Of course, an astrological election can enhance things, but you can just use the wisdom of the plants, and you can call on them whenever to instigate those changes, release stagnation, anything that's fungal or in that sort of decaying water. Okay, Saturn Pisces is a decaying water as well as an ocean. But standing water is just Scorpio. And whenever you want to set some healthy boundaries, okay, understanding that my setting boundaries is helping to be me being a more social human being that can connect with people easier. Okay, so for the benefit of my connection, I take up space in the world. Okay, very, very useful. And pine tree can accentuate on the ridicule of aggression to achieve something, and can strengthen up our immune system so that we don't feel so aggressive, or we're not scared by aggression, okay? Because we have the cunning and the humorous tool that can awaken people, and we're way more useful when we are alive. This is very simply put, okay? We're way more useful when we are alive. You don't have to burn a forest to get us to multiply. Okay, you can burn the fruit. And we're nutritious and we're good for your health. Okay, so pine trees, but if you try to put aggression on us, or if you try to exterminate us, we're just gonna multiply. And the problem is gonna also multiply. Until you let go of your, whether it's racismus or eugenics or whatnot, or bloodline devotion. Okay, there's also tribal. Okay, it's not just Hitler, there's also indigenous tribes sometimes. So for biodiversity, and I'll see you in my next episode. Bye.